Hi everybody, welcome to CMAC's 2021 Youth Voices documentary film screening. My name is Lisa Talley and I am the Education Coordinator here at CMAC.
And my name is Dominic Zamora. I'm the Membership Coordinator here at CMAC. CMAC is a nonprofit organization. It stands for Community Media Access Collaborative. Our mission is to help people tell their stories using digital media.
Whether those stories take on the shape of documentary, podcast, music video, talk show, CMAC provides the training and the equipment necessary to help our community members tell their stories in a way they feel is best.
And once the projects are complete, we'll air them on our community TV channels and online platforms.
CMAC Youth Voices is a program that aims to teach documentary filmmaking in 14 weeks with the goal to increase health outcomes of youth through video arts. It was made possible by funding from the California Endowment and from California Humanities, a nonprofit partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities. The films you're about to see are the result of hard work, determination, perseverance, and passion that culminated in 11 short documentaries covering a number of issues relevant to the Central Valley.
These students began their 14-week journey back in January, where we covered topics such as storytelling, field production, editing, audio, and more. Each student completed their films as a team of one. This year's program was much different compared to last year's run. Last year, the students worked in teams, but this year, due to COVID, each student had to work independently, handling every phase of the project by themselves.
And that meant identifying the story that they wanted to tell, constructing a production schedule they would need to follow, identifying the people that they would need to interview, developing those interview questions, and then conducting those interviews, as well as collecting footage, any relevant information, and then editing it all together. And this is all while keeping on top of their regular school schedule, assignments, and other obligations.
The screening is suitable for audiences of all ages, and there will be a Q&A session with the filmmakers right after, so stick around.
So grab a snack and relax as we hope you enjoy watching these films.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Garcia Villa. I'm 16 years old and I go to Design Science Middle College High School, and the name of my documentary is Immigrants in America. Some of my family members have been immigrants before, so it hits very close home to me. And so I was like, why not delve deeper into immigration and see how being an immigrant affects immigrants in America. I am taking a Chicano Latino Studies class, so through that I learned more about immigration, and then I was like, this is actually really cool. And so then I started thinking about what other projects I could do with it, and because I had signed up to this, it was like, well, this is probably a really good opportunity to delve deeper, and especially because it is connected to my family, it is more personal, and I thought it would be really interesting to see exactly how it is being an immigrant in America and what solutions there are to their situation. Personally, I think the media doesn't really talk about what it's like being an immigrant in America, and when it is, it's not really brought up to the surface as often as it should be. So even in schools, it's not really talked about. So there is kind of a lack of awareness in the community of exactly what immigrants go through, even though they are a minority. It's not really okay, they are, but what issues exactly do they face? I hope people are able to kind of think about it and more, and go home and want to search up what exactly do immigrants go through, especially because there are so many misconceptions in the media, and that they either learn how the misconceptions are incorrect, or get inspired to go home and help change how the system works towards immigrants and impact their lives as well.
I think first and foremost is that people need to realize that the journey to come to the United States is very dangerous and treacherous and scary. And I think that as a parent, we have to put ourselves in the light as a parent and as just an individual even, because some of these people are not always coming with children. But if you're coming just as an individual, if that is the only choice you have left, is to go through this dangerous, treacherous, terrible journey, and sometimes, even go through kidnapping and rape and harm, but that's your only choice. Imagine what the life conditions are like in their home country for them to have to make that choice, if they feel that this is the only choice they have left. And so I think a lot of times we don't think about that. We just think, oh, well, people just want to come to the United States. Okay, but why? Why do they want to come to the United States? What is happening in their home countries that they feel the need to escape and they feel this is their only option? And I feel that sometimes if we had a little bit more empathy, we could solve problems in a better, more sympathetic way. Because I really don't think that the majority of people are just coming to the United States for fun or just to try it out. Many of them understand that the immigration process here is difficult. Many of them understand that life here in the United States is difficult as well. And many of them know that if they are going to make the journey, they could potentially end in death. I mean, thousands of immigrants die each year trying to come to the United States. And yet that's a risk that they're willing to take because their living conditions wherever they're from are so terrible that they need to escape them. And I really think that people don't understand that. I think that if they did and they did some research on these things, that maybe they would try to come to the table and find solutions for immigrants who are seeking refuge in the United States.
The media portrays immigrants as like these horrible terrorists that are just trying to like steal jobs and create crime and things like that. But I really think that a more realistic version would just be that they're people coming from other countries. They may have political issues or poorness or wars or other things going on that they need to get away from. So they come to America because they think that it's better.
Families often have to make the decision between feeding their children or paying their fees to come to the U.S.
They're just treated really poorly by people and the government and everything. And I really think that the better way of dealing with it is making it easier to get citizenship once you're here and before, because it's really difficult for people to get citizenship because you have to pass a test that has questions that most Americans can't even answer. And it's a lot of fees and a lot of time that some people don't have to wait.
There is really no basic process, unfortunately, and I think that that's a huge misconception in the media and just in the community in general. Is like, all you have to do is fill out this paper and you'd be fine. That's not true. Everybody's case is so different, and it depends on the biographics of that person's case and their immigration history, and sometimes their criminal history, because nobody's perfect, so to speak, and there are times where people have committed crimes that have an impact on their immigration ability and their ability to become residents or citizens. And so there is no one size fits all. It really depends on the facts of that person's case and on whether or not they have family members in the United States who are U.S. citizens or residents, whether that person entered legally or illegally, and whether maybe that person has been, say, the victim of a crime, or if that person has been the victim of trafficking, or if that person has a child who has served, a child or a spouse who has served in the U.S. Armed Forces in the military. So all of these types of facts will play into account onto whether or not a person can become ultimately a resident. So there is no one size fits all. And for many people, there are no remedies available. And so sometimes they consult with me and they want me to help. But unfortunately, with the laws, how they are in the United States, sometimes even if someone has been here 20 years or 30 years, even if they have a perfectly clean, stellar record with not even so much as a traffic ticket, even sometimes in cases like that, there's nothing that I can do because the laws of the United States don't allow for that person to have a pathway to residency or citizenship. The mission of the New American Legal Clinic is twofold. So the first mission of the New American Legal Clinic is to train law students in the practice of law. So each year we have students who are enrolled at San Joaquin College of Law who are seeking that practical experience and want to make a positive impact in their community. And so it's my job as their professor and as the director of the New American Legal Clinic to train them on how to work a case from start to finish. And then the second part is, of course, infusing these great resources into the community. So we are grant funded and we're part of a bigger grant referral network. There are lots of organizations here in the Central Valley that cross-refer. So say that Education Leadership Foundation doesn't have the capacity or the resources or the ability to take on a case, they might refer that client to us at the New American Legal Clinic and vice versa. I also do a lot of media because I want the clients to know that we are here willing and able to help them and that our services are completely free of charge. We also do a lot of word of mouth. So a lot of our clients who have successfully obtained services through our program tell their friends and tell their family, and that's how we are able to really continue to grow the clinic and spread the word. We've become quite popular, and so our services are pretty booked up, but we do have a waiting list, or you're able to get an appointment within a few weeks if people are willing to wait for us to be able to serve their case. 2 years ago, I helped somebody who was reaching their 100th birthday become a US citizen. And before that, you may have heard in the news of a father who was detained while taking his children to school. And we successfully have gotten that dad out on a bond, and he's fighting his case before immigration. It's honestly just such a fantastic feeling. There's really no words that I can use to describe the feeling of helping someone obtain a lifelong dream. A lot of times I don't even think that the client themselves realizes how much they've had to overcome and achieve in order to be in this position. But we often have clients that cry at their citizenship ceremonies or just become really emotional because they're overwhelmed with the feeling of finally feeling American, even though many of them have been here all of their lives, but now they can legally say that they're American and get to reap some of the benefits from all of the hard work that they've put into this country. And so, I mean, honestly, if I had to choose a word, I would probably say that the feeling is euphoric, because it's just like such a huge high to know that me and my team have made such a positive impact, not only on this individual, but on generations to come from their lives as well, you know, from their children and then maybe their grandchildren and so on and so forth. It's just a really great feeling. I feel that there is a lot of misconception and there is a lot of false information, and there's become a negative rhetoric because in the prior administration, under the Trump administration, immigrants felt like the enemy. Anything that an immigrant did was highlighted negatively, and the president himself would make slurs against immigrants, saying that people from El Salvador were gang members or people from Mexico were rapists and criminals, generalizing the immigrant population. And even with COVID-19, saying things like the China virus, which I'm not a Chinese immigrant, but I can only imagine how people from China felt being blamed for something that they really had no control over, of course. And so I think that there is just a lot of misconception about immigrants in general because of the way that the last 4 years immigrants were in the media through the highest level, the highest official, the president, how he was portraying immigrants. And so I think that that fed people sort of the wrong message. And And it really did a lot of harm because immigrants felt like they had a target on their back, and many of them still do. And then there's the second part of it, which, yes, there is the misconception in the media, because if you ever follow a media thread about an immigrant story, there's always commenters that say things like, well, if they just, why don't they just become citizens? Or if they just did things right? Well, if they could, I'm sure that they would, and they would love to. Many of them want to do things right. But as I mentioned before, even for someone who's been here 30 years and has a sparkling clean record, sometimes there is no way to do things right. There is no remedy available. And so I think that if people really sat down to try to decipher the different ways that people can obtain legal status, and if they realized how difficult it was, that maybe, again, they would want to come to the table and have a solution. But people just think, oh, they broke the rules, they didn't do things right, so therefore they deserve whatever punishment is afforded to them, which obviously I disagree with. And that's why I have made it my life's mission, my life's work, to protect the rights of immigrants and help them obtain legal status to remain in the United States. I think that the most important thing, if anybody takes anything away from this documentary, is not only to see immigrants for the humans that we all are, but also to really take the time to educate yourself before you speak on a topic, or before you even develop those strong feelings about a topic that maybe you don't even really understand. Nobody wants people to break the law. That's not what anybody wants. But when we've developed a system that sometimes leaves other people no choice when they're seeking refuge and protection, we need to go back to the drawing board and try to fix that. What can we do to make this system better, to make it something more manageable? Because the laws that are, the last time that there was really a big overhaul of the immigration system was almost 30 years ago in 1997. And I think that people don't really understand that. We're operating on an old system with new problems. So we need a new system to address these new challenges and problems that we couldn't have foreseen in 1997. So let's think about how we can solve these with 2021 ideas. We were able to come up with a vaccine in 6 months. We continue to develop better medicine. We continue to develop better ways for kids to go to college and scholarships, at least in California. Let's do that with the immigration system too. We need to come up with new solutions for new problems that we couldn't have anticipated when Ronald Reagan was president, or Bill Clinton with the last sort of big overhaul. And so let's think about how we can all come to the table and present what the needs and the wants are of both sides and come to a compromise so we can finally do something about this.
Hi, my name is Jackie Schuster. I am 18 years old. I go to El Diamante High School in Visalia, and my film is Unhoused in a Pandemic. I was inspired to make this documentary because Visalia has always had a large issue with there being people experiencing homelessness in our area. We like to, point fingers at Fresno and be like, oh, well, it's their fault. They've got more homeless people. And, maybe Fresno does. Fresno's a larger city than us, so it makes sense. But Visalia and Tulare County, we have a large problem with how many individuals experiencing homelessness we have. There was an article a few weeks ago that came out, and they had just done some sweeps along the 198. They call them sweeps, but they take all the people who are living along that area, and they take their belongings and they throw them in the trash, and then they just kick them out of there. And so this was happening along the 198, one of our highways in town. And our mayor said, it's an eyesore. He didn't say, this is how we're going to fix the problem. This is what we want to do to help these citizens who, need our help. He said, it's an eyesore, so we're getting rid of it. And one of the biggest barriers to solving, the issue of homelessness is the lack of education. So many people are like, oh, well, everyone who's homeless is on drugs, or it's their fault that they didn't budget their money well enough, or, they're so quick to not understand and to point fingers and victim blame. And so I feel like telling stories like this and, giving education on how things actually affect homeless people is just putting us one step closer to maybe fixing this issue. I hope people take away from my film the fact that they can do something to help. I know it's really easy to, see all these issues going on and turn on the news and be really discouraged by all the negative things that we see, but it's so much easier to help than people would expect. Just educating yourself on what these issues are and what the cause is. Something as simple as, maybe working at a soup kitchen sometimes when you have free time and handing out meals. But the biggest thing is working with your local politicians and calling on them to do better and to help out those in their community that they're supposed to be serving. So I hope people watch my documentary and they take away the fact that they can do something, and they should, because their help is so much more valuable than they realize. My name is Jackie Schuster. This is my film, Unhoused in a Pandemic, and I hope you enjoy it. When the COVID-19 pandemic started, we didn't realize how much our lives would be affected. But while we sat inside waiting for life to return to normal, people experiencing homelessness felt more unease and uncertainty than ever before. The city of Visalia likes to cover our eyes and hope that our problems will go away on their own. But this problem has been here for years, and the COVID-19 pandemic proved that it's not going away anytime soon if we don't do anything about it.
With the issues that the pandemic created, there's a couple of things. Number one was just their own health concerns, because there are quite a few individuals who are on the street that are older and they have underlying health conditions. The other real issue, though, is the contradiction of messages that individuals have received. Early on in the pandemic, it seemed that individuals on the street were getting the message to just stay put where they were, to stay in these little pods that they had created, which would reduce their exposure to other individuals who might have been exposed to the virus. And so they felt really comfortable just staying put, and that meant that there were quite a few of these pods, or these family groups in a sense, out on the river and in other pockets in Visalia. And then all of a sudden that message changed, and they started disrupting those groups and moving them out. So that was an issue. And it took the city a while too, in the early days of the pandemic, to recognize the need for sanitation. Everybody's talking about washing your hands, wearing a mask. Well, where were these individuals who are on the street supposed to do that if they didn't have access to a bathroom, to a place to wash their hands? Because many of the public restrooms in the city have been shut down for years. And that sanitation issue is a constant problem. Fortunately, the city took some of their FEMA money and did put out stations for a while, but they've all been picked up now, and we're just now coming towards a sense of normalcy, but they've been out without those sanitation stations for many months now. Local government, they do have a role to play, and that's one thing we've struggled with for several years, that they haven't seen this as part of their responsibility. The city is now beginning to make some small changes, but there needs to be more of that. I know that individuals on the street appreciate a handout or a sandwich or a hamburger, and the groups that go out to the river or to the other encampment areas and provide a hot meal, those are great, and those are really important because that helps them survive one more day. But where people need to do do the most work is on policy and getting their local government to realize that these individuals pay taxes. Every time they go to the store and buy cigarettes, they're paying taxes. They buy, something to eat, they're paying taxes. They deserve the same amount of respect as anybody else who pays taxes. And cities need to make sure they're taking these individuals into account, allowing individuals who are on the streets to find that care and compassion is so important.
Hi, my name is Isabella. I'm 16. I go to Kerman High, and my project is Bisexual Visibility, Acknowledging the Overlooked. The thing that inspired me to create this documentary was my own experiences. I identify as bisexual, and so while I was trying to figure that out, I would look for resources like YouTube videos or blogs, and I found that there wasn't really much that I could look for. And so it inspired me to create a documentary that would be the resource for someone else that might be going through the same experience. I hope that when watching my documentary, people get the idea that bisexuality is not just a phase. It's not something that you have to move on from eventually. Like, it's okay to identify as bisexual. It's asexuality. And for those that are bisexual, I want them to know that there are other people like them and that they are not going through this alone.
My name is Michael Hicks, and I am a high school English teacher. I identify as bisexual, and I've been identifying as bisexual since I was in the 7th grade, and I don't see that changing anytime soon, if at all.
Hi, I'm Jordan, and I am a junior in high school, and I identify as bisexual.
One of the things I think that's kind of difficult about being bisexual is that you kind of have to come out of the closet all the time. It's not a contest. I don't like to say that anyone suffers more, but with people that are gay or lesbian, when they come out, they always talk about the moment they came out. And it's one time, basically announced to family or friends and to themselves, like who they are. But for people that are bisexual, you have to do it every single time that you meet someone you want to be involved with.
I feel like a lot of people don't understand that you can have attraction to both with two genders rather than just loving a woman or just loving a man. I think bisexual visibility can shift that stigma that exists within bisexuals, because I feel that bisexuals seeing more visibility about other people with the same sexualities they have and just people expressing and being comfortable with it would help just being more comfortable with their sexuality if they have faced harassment in the past.
If you come across with the same confidence as you would saying that you were gay or that you were transgender, here I am, deal with it. I think that more people would just be more accepting. And I think that if more people were honest about that and just willing to talk about it, then I think it would end some of those stigmas. I think some misconceptions exist because people, rather than asking questions, they observe something and make their own conclusions.
For my own experiences, being that I do currently have a boyfriend, people assume like, oh, she's straight now. She used to be lesbian because she has had a girlfriend before.
A lot of people in society tend to still look at someone who is bisexual as someone who can't make a decision, someone who's indecisive. The attraction to both genders does not go away if you're in a relationship with someone. Telling a bisexual person that they could be straight if they want to is like telling a gay person they could be straight if they want to.
I think it's harder for a teen to be accepted because the peers are usually like, well, you're too young to know what you like.
If a child was to say that they are bisexual, I think the parents would say that they were confused or that they don't know like what they want.
I feel like more comments are given from adults to younger kids because they feel like they have the superiority over them to show that they don't know what they think yet, or they're not able to determine themselves yet because they aren't of age.
But there's a lot more support out there for kids now. Like they have PFLAG. A lot of schools have gay straight alliances. Where I work, we call it the Gender and Sexuality Association. We felt that was more inclusive because there's a lot of kids, at my school that are not necessarily part of the LGBT community, but they are supportive. And I see that support more with kids than with adults.
I feel there should be more resources provided to high school students, especially even college students too, because in high school, you're kind of lost. and you need these resources to be able to find a path and just literally anything. And not just for bisexual people, it's for the LGBT community in general. But I do feel that the resources that have been provided, like in a health class, are just not as reliable, because in health class they just focus on male and female practices. They don't focus on male and male practices, and they don't focus on female and female practices. I didn't know that there was protection for that until like a year ago. I just thought it was just okay that a woman doesn't get pregnant, so there doesn't need to be any protection. I didn't think about like STDs or anything like that.
I follow a page on Facebook. It's just bi.org. It's bisexual.org. And they kind of promote visibility. You know, they're always posting pictures of people that are willing to be open with their bisexuality. And it's just regular people. Sometimes it's famous people or historical figures or Wonder Woman, you know, just to remind people that, hey, there's more of us out there. We're not like this secret group that you think there's like 5 of us in there. No, there's a lot of us out there.
Social media sites that do bring me comfort would be Instagram or TikTok. And Instagram mostly because people are able to show themselves with pictures about how comfortable they are with their significant others, or how they're comfortable going to Pride in wherever it is, like is here in Fresno. I try and make other people feel validated with their sexuality by commenting on posts when they're comfortable enough to post with their significant other. And I tell them that they're really good as a couple, or I tell them congratulations, just congratulating them and making them feel a little better about what they post. But then there's the side that they're posting because they're upset because they face harassment. So I do bring comfort to that to try and make them feel better and feel like they're able to be posting like they were again with the happy, comfortable vibes they had. Advice I would like to give bisexuals in the world would be, just don't change yourself. Be yourself. If you are bisexual, be bisexual. Don't let others harass you because you have a certain preference.
Be more confident with your sexuality. Don't let society make you feel like you need to hide it, because there's nothing wrong with it. Just like with people that are transgender or people that are gay or that are lesbian or asexual or whatever part of the spectrum, there's nothing wrong with it. And so I just think that I would encourage more bisexual people to be open about it. Or if they're met with curiosity, try not to be so offended by it and be more open to talking about it. Don't assume everyone is coming at you to judge you. Maybe some people are genuinely curious and want more information.
Hello, my name is Eunice Choi. I am 16 years old and I go to Clovis North High School. The name of my film is Contemporary Education Barriers in Fresno's Concentrated Poverty. So I was initially inspired to make a documentary about the economic disparities in Fresno's education system because as I was visiting certain schools in southern Fresno, I noticed that some schools used portables as classrooms and didn't have the funding to power our programs or utilize the funding toward transportation. I wanted to make this issue more known to Fresno's communities so that we can urge our leaders of Fresno to take initiative on this phenomenon. I hope that people are more open to learning to the issues of education. After watching my documentary, I hope that people are more aware of this phenomenon and are more open to learning about the issues of education in general. Education is so important in people's lives right now because it determines many factors in someone's life, like employment, college, and life decisions in general. My name is Eunice Choi, and I hope you enjoy my film, Contemporary Education Barriers in Fresno's Concentrated Poverty.
Children who grow up in poverty have a pretty high probability of staying in poverty as adults. And so there is sort of a trap there. It's not that it's a chosen lifestyle. Nobody chooses to live like that. It's that there are such limited opportunities to get kids and adults out of those neighborhoods. There's only so many places you can go, and the neighborhoods where there are opportunities are unaffordable. So currently residential segregation in Fresno I would say it's moderate to high, depending on which groups you're talking about. The areas of concentrated poverty in Fresno are predominantly in South Fresno. The unfortunate reality is that schools still primarily rely on their local tax base. And so, if the neighborhood overall is under-resourced and, the property taxes are lower because the property values are lower, the schools get less money from local property taxes. And on top of that, wealthier schools also get more donations from families. They get more financial resources directly from families who invest in the education of their own children with money. And so schools that don't serve families that are wealthy don't get those same kind of financial perks from the families directly. So they get less donations, they get less volunteer time from the parents. Those financial resources, create better in-school environments. So better materials, more opportunities for extracurricular activities, better conditions in the classrooms. So, even the quality of the structure and the upkeep.
Sometimes we have a limit on things. Like right now, I think we'll be put on wait lists for like certain resources. Like for a simple calculator for like our statistics class, like for stats, you get put on a wait list because we don't have enough. And like some of their schools, like when we go to visit, you can see like they have all these high-tech computers and like all these cool like labs. In our school, we have like one lab and it's kind of small, and like you kind of have to wait in line to use the computer or get there early before like everyone takes it over. And like you can notice like some of the schools, like the way they're organized on the outside, they're very like, I don't know, you see like the modernness and like how neat, and like you'll see like the new improvements that are getting done, and like you look at our school and you're like, oh, like I wish we had like a new library or like we had a new seating area or something. Like I see like upgrades, like there's schools that have like certain upgrades that we don't normally get. So I feel like the damaged books and like resources that we have do impact students, because either we can't use it because it's not like workable, or because we'll just lose focus because we're like, oh, this page is missing, like I'll copy off of someone else, like, and I feel like that's what causes kids to slack off. And then if they're broken, then we can't use it correctly. And especially now that we're online, it's like it's a big deal, because if your computer's not working, you can't really do the work that you're assigned. Transportation wise, like for the fundings and everything, especially we here like in Southeast Fresno, a lot of us have to either chip in for buses, or like they'll have to find a way to get enough funding to take everyone, and or they either like limit the amount of people that can go because we don't have enough money for the buses. And I feel like that leaves kids left out on going to this experience like of like maybe a possible future career or something that can influence their mind on that.
Children are experiencing possibly unhealthy environments. So in Fresno, this is particularly relevant. They're breathing in more polluted air, which can affect cognitive functioning. They're drinking contaminated water, which can also affect cognitive functioning. If they're living in neighborhoods that are, might experience more violence or are closer to freeways, you've got all sorts of noise and stressors that can affect children's ability to just be fully focused on their education. Concentrated poverty creates these unhealthy environments for children to thrive. You also get less green space, less space for recreational opportunities that keep children healthy and functioning. There's even research that shows that children who live in areas of concentrated poverty get worse sleep at night. And if you're not sleeping well at night, you can't do as well at school during the day, right? These important physical components of life, you're not meeting those needs. And so it affects how well you do in school.
I feel like to solve a lot of the problems at schools around the Southeast Fresno area a lot is the funding. I feel like the funding's a big thing, because if we have more resources, we'll have more kids maybe want to get involved, more interaction. I feel like it affects their future a lot, because if you get to go experience like new things and like go to trips and stuff like that, you'll see like, do I really want to do this in the future? Do I see myself doing this? Like you get put in that environment, like, is this for me? And I feel like with more funding and more trips, like educational trips, or even just having like resources, like new computers or like enough calculators for all the students, new textbooks. I feel like in a way that kind of gets them motivated, like, oh, like we got new books, like look at our books, like, you know, it like even the smallest thing gets like a student motivated, like even like adding a new like seating area, kids are gonna be like, oh, like I want to sit there. It gets them more excited. And I feel like with more funding, we can be more interactive with our students and like also focus on them more. And I hope like teachers get that feeling of like less stress now if they make our classrooms bigger and maybe less kids, because I feel like we would have more space, they could have more one-on-one and help those like potential at-risk students from dropping out. Like we can help them if we have bigger classrooms but a smaller class size.
The best way to get people out of poverty is to just straight up give them the resources, you know, give them that extra income, give them labor opportunities, invest in their neighborhoods so that they can take care of themselves and live healthy lives. Because without those opportunities, yeah, people get stuck.
Hello, my name is Elaine Garcia. I am 17 years old and I go to Roosevelt High School, and my documentary is called Perseverance is Key. Something that inspired me to create this documentary was to show other people that they should persevere and not be afraid to let go of their dreams just because other people told them that they can't do it. Just because someone tells you that you can't doesn't mean that you can't do it. And you should always remember that, and don't let anyone take away your dreams just because other people feel like they need to tell you, oh no, you can't do this or you can't do that, because many people are capable of doing so many things in life, but just because people tell them no, they just leave it and never look back. Something that I hope that people take away from watching my documentary is feel inspired and motivated to do whatever it is that they want to do in their life and actually achieve the success that they're looking for, and hopefully take this advice and hopefully they get to do whatever it is that they want to achieve, whether it be the career, their dreams, a business, anything. My name is Elaine Garcia and my film is Perseverance is Key, and I hope you enjoy it.
Quisiéramos agradecer por esta entrevista y ojalá y pueda inspirar a alguno de los que la están viendo.
Bueno, la oportunidad Amway es una compañía global, es una compañía que está en más de 100 países y territorios. En realidad la oportunidad es muy sencilla, se trata de comprar productos, ayudar al planeta y ganar a través de tus productos. Y también puedes desarrollar comunidades. ¿Cómo es desarrollar comunidades? Invitar a personas a que hagan lo mismo, a que compren productos, que ganen dinero y que cuiden al planeta. Así que hay muchas áreas para desarrollar lo que es el negocio de Amway, pero nosotros estamos desarrollándolo a través de comprando productos y creando una comunidad que gane dinero.
Antes de iniciar en el negocio de Amway, ¿cómo nos sentíamos? ¿Cómo te sentías?
Bueno, yo en lo personal me sentía que necesitaba algo para hacer en mi vida. Había intentado varios trabajos, había intentado algunos negocios tradicionales, pero en realidad no era lo que yo creía que podía desarrollar en mi vida. Cuando llegó la oportunidad de Amway, en realidad yo vi un negocio amplio donde me podía desarrollar como mamá, como familia, como esposa, en muchas áreas de mi vida. Así que esta oportunidad ha sido buenísima para mí y ha complementado todo lo que yo necesitaba para mi vida.
¿Cómo me sentía antes de la oportunidad Amway? Bueno, es una excelente pregunta. Yo creo que sí me sentía un poco frustrado porque pues ya tenía mucho tiempo tratando de salir adelante, trabajando como empleado en una rutina de casa-trabajo, y en ciertos momentos sí llegaba la frustración a mí, porque yo quería algo más, y quería salir de la rutina. Por eso cuando llega la oportunidad de Amway sí sentimos que era una luz de esperanza para salir adelante y gracias a Dios pues estamos trabajando en eso.
Bueno, yo creo que el proceso de realizar Amway más que nada se enfoca en la creencia personal, en creer que puedes desarrollar un negocio grande, un negocio que te dé frutos. Yo creo que ese proceso es bonito vivirlo, hay que vivir cualquier etapa de la vida que uno se encuentre y dentro del negocio yo creo que el proceso nunca ha sido malo, al contrario, siempre nos ha dado enseñanzas y el proceso ha sido la creencia personal de que uno lo puede lograr.
Así es, para aprender a nadar se necesita un proceso, para aprender otro idioma se necesita un proceso, para aprender a tocar un instrumento se necesita un proceso y también aquí en la empresa Amway también se necesita un proceso. El proceso no fue fácil en cierta forma, no fue fácil, sin embargo podemos decir que tampoco fue difícil una vez entendiendo que teníamos que cambiar nuestra forma de pensar. El proceso que pasamos es interesante porque nos ha hecho crecer como ser humano, nos ha hecho crecer como pareja, nos ha hecho crecer como padres y pues les podríamos compartir muchísimas cosas acerca del proceso. Yo creo que mejorar los hábitos fue un proceso un poquito más complicado porque sinceramente veníamos de hábitos no muy agradables y empezar a mejorarlos pues llevó un proceso muy interesante, pero gracias a Dios también estamos trabajando en todo eso y pues ahí la llevamos.
Bueno, yo decidí iniciar el negocio de Amway porque primero que nada no tenía un trabajo y quería un negocio, quería un trabajo que tuviera la flexibilidad de tener el tiempo para poder estar con mi hija. Entonces el negocio de Amway lo inicié precisamente para tener tiempo con mi hija y poder llevarlo a la escuela, tener la flexibilidad de tiempo. Por eso decidí iniciar el negocio de Amway. Bueno, yo creo que uno de los retos fue trabajar en equipo, porque él tenía sus actividades en su trabajo y pues yo tenía las mías. Entonces uno de los retos fue eso, acoplarnos y emprender algo juntos. El segundo yo creo que fue la creencia en mí de que podía lograr grandes cosas dentro de esta corporación. Y en tercero, creer en la gente, que también ellos podían lograrlo. Así que han pasado muchos retos, pero yo creo que principalmente la creencia en uno mismo y el trabajar en equipo como pareja.
Así es. A mí me gustaría compartirles que cualquier cosa que uno quiera iniciar, cualquier negocio, cualquier emprendimiento que tú quieras emprender, va a llevar retos y uno debe de estar preparado. Yo cuando estaba en la radio, yo les decía que uno debe de estar preparado para cuando la oportunidad se presente. A veces hay cosas en las cuales uno no está preparado, pero lo bueno es que uno se puede preparar, ¿no? Y sí, yo coincido con Josie de que uno de los retos fue hacer equipo, porque el primer equipo empieza en casa. Y ahí fue donde quizás fue uno de los retos más grandes de poder hacer equipo. Otro de los retos también para mí en lo personal fue trabajar en metas, trabajar en la lectura. A mí no me gustaba leer. Para emprender tú necesitas leer. Porque cuando tú lees un libro es como si estuvieras conversando con personas exitosas. Cuando tú lees un libro. Y nuestra cultura, yo soy mexicano de Michoacán, pues nuestra cultura no tiene mucho ese hábito de lectura. Y ese fue otro reto también para mí, el entender que yo tenía que cambiar mi forma de pensar para cambiar mi forma de vivir. Y pues estamos trabajando también en esos retos.
Bueno, yo en lo personal creo que no cambiaría nada. Todo ha sido perfecto así como ha sucedido, porque todo lo que nos ha pasado nos ha llevado al resultado que hoy en día tenemos. Y yo creo que nada cambiaría, todo ha sido aprendizaje, todo ha sido disfrutar el camino, todo ha sido bueno para nuestras vidas y todo tiene un porqué. Así que todo lo que ha sucedido hasta este punto ha sido maravilloso porque hemos disfrutado, hoy en día disfrutamos el éxito gracias a esos pequeños obstáculos que tuvimos en el camino.
Yo también coincido con Yossi. Yo creo que aprovecharía un poquito más otras cosas que quizás no aproveché en su momento, en el camino al resultado que tenemos hoy en día. Pero yo creo que no cambiaría mucho, aprovecharía más sin cambiarlo, lo aprovecharía más. Creo que si alguna vez ha pasado por nuestra mente rendirnos, tirar la toalla, yo creo que sí, de mi parte sí.
Yo en lo personal no, en mi mente siempre creí en el negocio, siempre técnicamente sabía que funcionaba, sabía que como la suma, 1 más 1 es 2, o sea, técnicamente sabía que funcionaba. Yo creo que si pasaban sentimientos negativos era por mí, no por el negocio, no por el equipo, sino por mí. Porque sabía yo que tenía que crecer para poder crecer dentro del negocio. Pero rendirme jamás, porque siempre, desde que yo era una niña, he pensado que lo que hago lo tengo que terminar. Y siempre, gracias a mis padres que implementaron esa semillita de tú puedes, todo lo que me he propuesto, gracias a Dios, lo he llevado a cabo. Así que no, mi mente nunca permitió el pensamiento de decir que me tengo que rendir.
Sí, en mi caso sí pasó por mi mente. Muchas de las veces sentí que yo no podía llegar a los niveles. Yo sentí que yo era a lo mejor más bueno para otras cosas, no tanto para hacer esta oportunidad. Aparte, pues yo creo que ahí entran los retos que pasamos en lo personal también. Yo creo que cuando pasaba esos retos de que no, a lo mejor no, me decía que no, la gente me decía que no. Y yo, como venía de la radio, nunca me habían dicho que no, nunca había experimentado un no. Y en lo personal, a veces esos no, sí me hacían que yo pensara. Afortunadamente me metí más a la lectura para que esos no estuvieran influenciando en mi mente y que se desapareciera. Y ahorita les puedo decir que ya no pasan en mi mente. ¿Qué factores nos ayudaron para tener un negocio exitoso? Bueno, hay muchos factores que nos ayudaron. Yo creo que cuando uno va a emprender algo, no necesariamente esta oportunidad de Amway, cuando tú vas a emprender algo necesitas ver que esa oportunidad tenga un sistema que funcione. Es un buen factor, un sistema ya sea de capacitación personal. También otro factor que nos ayudó mucho también fue el equipo. Tener a un equipo emprendedor, tener a un equipo unido, tener a un equipo con muchas ganas de crecer, tener a un equipo que trabaja en armonía, que une fuerzas, que une talento. Yo creo que ese es uno de los factores muy, muy importantes para que nosotros estemos donde estamos, ¿no? Yo creo que el sistema, un equipo y la voluntad que tú tengas de avanzar. ¿Qué consejo le daríamos a alguien que quiera emprender o a algún empresario?
Bueno, yo el consejo que le daría es, primero que nada, que crea en sus sueños, que crea en lo que su mente, en lo que su corazón le está hablando, que crea 100% en eso que le está llamando la atención. Y no importa lo que les digan las demás personas, no importa incluso lo que te digan tus padres, tienes que creer en tus sueños, tienes que perseguir tus sueños y tienes que trabajar por tus sueños.
Así es. Una de las cosas más fuertes que tiene el ser humano son sus pensamientos. Y es como dice Yossi, cuando uno piensa que puede. Como lo dicen por ahí, ¿no? Si crees, creas. Entonces, yo creo que el consejo que yo le daría a alguien que quiera emprender algo, yo le recomendaría que lea mucho, que se informe en lo que va a desarrollar, como dice Yossi, que crea mucho en él, que aprenda cómo hacer el proyecto que vaya a desarrollar, que vea los recursos que se requieren, que se necesitan, y que se prepare él como persona, como emprendedor, que se prepare, y si él cree en él, no importa que nadie crea en él necesita creer en él y emprender, volar alto, porque yo creo que cualquier persona puede hacer muchas cosas grandes. Uno de los consejos que le daría también sería que lea 20 historias de gente exitosa. 20 historias que lea y que él se dé cuenta qué hicieron esas personas para llegar a lograr el éxito que tienen. Si otra gente pudo, todos podemos.
Hi, my name is Alicia Lopez. I am 17 years old. I am traditionally homeschooled, and the name of my documentary is She, He, They. I was inspired by other people on social media who were sharing their stories and their experiences with their pronouns and trying to get people to respect their pronouns, and I wanted to help them share their stories. I hope what people take away from my documentary is the importance of respecting other people's pronouns, because even if they don't think it's so important, it is important to that person because that's part of their identity. My name is Alicia, and this is She, He, They, and I hope that you enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Brianna Guerrero.
My name is Spencer Salazar.
I'm Kate. I use they, them, theirs pronouns. My pronouns are he, they.
My pronouns are he, him, and his.
I'm 23 years old.
I am 29 years old.
I'm 15, turning 16 in April.
Pronouns are what we use when we're not using names.
For example, I use he, him, and they, them. And then there's she, her. There are a lot of neo-pronouns. Neo-pronouns are like ze, them.
Pronouns are important for a few reasons. Firstly, especially coming from the trans community, using someone's correct pronouns, and I say correct pronouns, not preferred, because preferred kind of means it's like a choice. Correct meaning more that it is who they are, it's not a question. It's a life-saving thing. It's a very simple act of kindness and respect.
Everybody has pronouns. So I know some people put their pronouns in their bio on social media, and when you see that, most people think, oh, they're trans or something like that. That's not always the case. Like there are some girls who are more masculine than other girls, and there are some boys who are more feminine, and they use those pronouns to, because even if you're cis, being misgendered can be hurtful.
It's not exclusive to the trans community. I educate folks on using their pronouns because we make assumptions. Even for some folks that are not trans, they may be misgendered because the way they dress or the way they present themselves. And so I think it's important to normalize this experience, especially for like gender neutral pronouns, a lot of pushback I get is, well, they, them, theirs is plural. And I always push back saying, well, when you don't know somebody, you say, hey, you see that person over there, what are they doing? You just did it. You did the singular they.
I finally started using they, them pronouns, and people started addressing me as them over there and only as Brianna. Because I also substitute my name for my pronouns too, so you can call me Bree instead of they. It felt right. It felt like my life was finally complete in some sense. Like I finally hit a milestone in some weird sense. It finally felt like I wasn't lost anymore. Like that's what it felt like, that I wasn't lost in the forest. Like I finally found my path in life. And that was an awesome feeling. And the thing about they, them, theirs pronouns, and I'm not sure if other non-binary people have experienced this, but like it was truly an experiment at first. But when I started enjoying that people were calling me they, them, that's when I was like, okay, then yeah, I'm non-binary. Like there's just no way I'm not.
Oh, it's so relieving because you know, even when I knew something wasn't right, even when I knew, oh, I'm absolutely not female, it was hard for me to pinpoint which pronouns I was comfortable with. Because, you know, at first you don't really let yourself think that way because you're like, nah, you have to be female because that's what you were taught. But, you know, as time went on, I was just trying to figure out who I was. And when I finally was like, he, they, that's what I like, it's just so refreshing because, you know who you are at least a little more than you did before, and then people get to see you the same way, and you get to start changing yourself and making yourself more comfortable in who you are, and it's a nice process.
I look as trans as it's kind of a funny thing. We talk about trans as like a huge umbrella, and for some folks their umbrella is like a beach umbrella. It's big. And then some other people see trans as this tiny, singular little umbrella for one person. And so for me personally, I look as trans as the huge encompassing beach umbrella. Because to me, trans is you don't identify with your biological sex. And it not meaning that you have to go from one straight to the other side in that binary perspective. I look at trans as just simply you don't identify with your biological sex. So for me, non-binary is encompassed in the trans as well. But for a lot of folks, and this is where language is ever developing and growing within the community, so I can only speak from my personal experience, that most, not all, trans folks will, trans men or trans woman, you'll sometimes hear trans masculine, trans feminine, but non-binary essentially is encompassing of just not subscribing to the binary perspective of man and woman. And so it's a little bit more nuanced, it's a little bit more individualized. I have met many non-binary folk who they share the same identity, but they don't share the same understanding of that identity within themselves. And I think that's really beautiful. And I think even for binary trans people, that even for them, it means something very deeply personal.
It's almost like you get butterflies. Like when someone uses the right pronouns, it feels so nice and heartwarming, and this is like the first couple of times. Over time you get used to it and you don't get the same feeling. But well, actually sometimes I do, but not as much anymore. But before, whenever somebody would use the right pronouns, and I wasn't used to people using the right pronouns, I would just like, I could not stop smiling for the rest of the day, and I would get butterflies and be super happy.
In just one word, it's euphoria. It's that moment that people see you the way you see you. And I think that, yeah, it's euphoria. hearing someone naturally say my pronouns, naturally say my name or whatever, it brings happiness and joy in that I can be this person, and that people aren't going to look at me like I'm crazy or I'm sick or something. They can just see me. I'm just another human being having a human experience, essentially.
Like I said, being a lot of people's first. So getting those questions like, why do you still look the way you do if you use they, them, theirs pronouns? Does this mean that you hate women? I've had a lot of people, very ignorant people, come up to me and just with the most mind-boggling questions that I'm just like, how is this any of your, how is this any of your business?
But it's also really hard to be the one who has to teach everybody else. Like, I don't like having to be the one who has to teach cisheads when there's already a lot of information online and stuff like that. It's just, I feel like it's a lot of extra work on us.
Misgendering is basically calling somebody the wrong gender. It happens a lot, especially in the beginning, and it's really hard on your mental health because you're trying so hard to fit in, you're trying so hard to ascribe to these things that, you know, the gender you are, and society's kind of there to remind you, hey, you're not. And that's really hard to navigate sometimes when you don't have that affirming corner. You know, you don't have those people there to help you through, like, to make you feel better. It feels gross. It just, being misgendered doesn't feel good. For me, when it would happen, sometimes I would spiral. Like, okay, well, if they see me as a woman, I'll never be seen as a man. And then I'll never, like, is this true? Is this honest? It makes you doubt yourself, question yourself. It made me not want to go places, made me not want to do things. I didn't want to talk to people because I was scared. And I mean, I still have these moments where I'm like, well, are they going to see me as such? Like, you know, I'm wearing a face mask because it's, you know, we can't, you know, COVID. And well, are they going to still think that I'm a guy because they can't see my face? I'm in, you know, are they going to find my hips? Are they going to think, oh, that's a woman's body? Or all these things, it just spirals into your thinking when people make those mistakes or just do it in a malicious way. It just is not good for the mental health when people do that.
If you know you misgendered somebody, I think the easiest way to do it is just correct yourself the next sentence and don't make a big deal out of it.
Very simple. Do not make a scene. Don't go, oh, I'm so sorry. I hate that. It really is as simple as if someone said she, you know, Spencer, she, it's just as simple as, oh, I'm so sorry, Spencer, he.
You could ask first instead of assuming. If you do know someone's pronouns and stuff, but it's taking you a while to get used to it, which is understandable. I know for me and a lot of my trans friends were really understanding with that. So, but when it takes you more than like 2 weeks, it just seems like you don't care enough. So I think that a way you can help yourself to remember is to practice.
Just keep saying them. Say their name, say their pronouns. Not around them, just do it, you know, like when you're at home. Just practice, you know, my name is Spencer, I use he, him pronouns. And I had to practice with myself to get comfortable doing it too. So it is a repetition thing because we have to remember, especially if they're not coming out till later, that people were used to a certain name and certain pronouns. And we have to give grace that it takes time to kind of rewire the brain. And so another thing I tell folks is, if you're a reader, go grab a book. And every time you see a pronoun, change it. Especially for like the they, them, theirs. A lot of people struggle with that one. And that one's a lot of work because you kind of have to change some other things in the sentence sometimes. But if you practice it, it becomes natural. And I think it's important that we educate kind of on here's an introductory level of what these terms mean. But if you have the space and you have the people and you have the respect to learn more, take the time to figure out what it means individually to that person, because everyone has their own story and each story is beautiful.
Hi, my name is Brianna Mendoza. I'm 15 years old and I go to Design Science Middle College High School. The name of my film is Casa. Something that inspired me to make this documentary was definitely my goal of becoming a social worker, and I wanted to let everyone know the difficulties that foster kids go through and that there are people out there that are willing to help. It's important for people to know the troubles and the obstacles that foster kids go through, because people often misinterpret that the foster care system is just a bunch of criminals, basically, just juvenile delinquents being placed into the system because their parents didn't want them. And that interpretation is wrong, because the foster care system is just filled with innocent children that have unfortunately been placed into the system. And it's important for people to know that, because taking time out of your day to volunteer at, let's say, CASA, becoming an advocate will help improve a kid's life. When people watch my film, I hope that they realize that there are kids out there that need help, that in the future they can become advocates, they can become foster care parents, and just help improve a kid's life. I'm Brianna Mendoza, and this is my film, Casa.
Hi, I'm Paul Braswell with CASA of Fresno and Madera counties. I'm the Resource Development Coordinator.
My name is Delaney Musio, and I work at CASA of Fresno and Madera, and I am an advocate supervisor here, and I also double as an advocate here myself as well.
My name is Elena Voskas. I'm an advocate supervisor at CASA of Fresno and Madera counties.
So what CASA does is recruit volunteers, train them, and supervise them to help foster kids. In order to do that, we need a staff and an office.
I didn't necessarily decide to come into this field. I fell into this field.
I went to Fresno State and I majored in victimology, so that kind of got me interested in working with people who have experienced trauma or crime, and then I heard about CASA and I became an advocate, and that's kind of led me to working with children and seeing how I can fit into that puzzle of their life. That was not what I anticipated working in or going to school for, but I'm super glad I'm here.
Well, a lot of people have never heard of CASA. They confuse us with other things that come to mind when they hear CASA, but it stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. We're a nationwide organization, and I think the frustrating thing is just getting the word out. We actually have done a better job of that, and that we've been able to grow our program. Last year we helped 350 kids, which was a record, and we've got about 225 full-time volunteer advocates. They're sworn in, and that's also a record. Also last year, our program, we had 12 high school seniors, and 11 of them were able to graduate, which is a major accomplishment. Many foster children have a better chance of going to prison than graduating from high school. So when a CASA advocate's involved in their life, they generally have a much better outcome. And that's our main goal, is to reunite them with family if we can and get them to graduate from high school. I was a foster child myself. I feel I have some of the hardships that a typical foster child would experience, and that gives me an empathy and a special understanding for the challenges that these children face, and it's very rewarding that I can be in a position to work to give back and to help these children.
And so to see the pain and to hear the trauma that these kids put themselves through, or that they are put through every time they run away from home, it's compounded, and it's very difficult to see the other team members, to get them to understand that side. As a supervisor, I hope to achieve anything that I can to help better a child's life, and that varies case by case depending on the child. It is very emotionally challenging when you are dealing with youth who are so misunderstood, who are so abused, who don't know how to function on a normal basis. On top of that, dealing with some professionals who may be experiencing burnout, or some who are just there for the money and aren't truly there for the children.
Some people say, oh, the system's broken, but I really think it just wasn't designed to be successful for a lot of people. And so you're constantly hitting roadblocks and challenges and just not understanding how the things that are happening to these children are.
The welfare system today is overworked. They mean well, but we just don't have the resources right now to fully care for these kids the way that we would like. Social workers are very overburdened by their caseloads, and it's difficult when everybody is just entirely overworked, and sometimes the CASA advocate is the only one who truly has eyes on that kid more than once per month. It can get very frustrating seeing a child go through the same cycle and essentially getting lost within the system.
My name is Ruben Diaz. I'm 18 years old. I go to Central High School, and the title of my film is called 404 Connection Not Found. What inspired me to create this film was my dad's place. He moved to a remote area where your nearest neighbor is 50 miles away. And I realized, hey, there's no internet. A lot of things depend on internet. We don't realize it, but they do. And just how hard, life can potentially get without, having that necessary connection. A lot of places lack that internet connection. They're being left behind. I hope that, people who watch my film are able to, one, see that there is, a lack of service and, there's whole communities and people being left behind due to this lack of internet access. And, hopefully that people, do go out there and say, hey, these people do deserve internet. We're progressing, and we shouldn't leave anyone behind, because of where they live, simply just because of that. My name is Ruben. I created this documentary, and I hope you enjoy it.
The internet, whether you realize it or not, has fundamentally changed how a lot of tasks are done nowadays, to the point that not having internet can really affect progress. But unfortunately, progress stops for nobody, and this is leaving whole communities behind. For many people today, the internet has become something they rely on from day to day. And it's really no surprise. Since the internet's mass adoption in the 1990s, the internet has been replacing and revolutionizing a lot of industries and tasks. Tasks that used to take days of manual labor could now be done quickly and shared around the globe in a matter of minutes. And as time progressed, more tasks were being automized and adapted to implement the internet. Fast forward to today, and most of our modern life revolves around the internet, relying on it from everyday tasks like keeping up with the most current news, to full enterprise tasks such as keeping the stock market up to date with the latest information. And this shift to relying more on the internet has only been recently accelerated by COVID-19 and stay-at-home orders enacted by it. With more people than ever relying on the internet for work, school, and communication, tying your productivity and success to your internet speed and stability. And it seems that things may not reverse even once the pandemic ends. However, not everyone has access to fast, reliable, and affordable internet. For many people in rural or remote parts of America, access to internet is oftentimes non-existent. Without the support of large internet service providers, many are left with very few options and often have to resort to expensive, slow, and very unreliable satellite internet, a luxury that not many can afford. Located 8 miles from downtown Fresno, we sat down and talked to Angelica Luna, who lives in an area where her only options are simply too expensive.
My name is Angelica Luna and I mainly work in the field. But due to the situation, I have stopped working, since my children don't receive a lot of signal. That's why I'm now here with them, since the internet doesn't work. So the boss comes and delivers their homework package and they turn in what they were supposed to do. That's why I haven't been working. And it has been affecting us a lot since the signals leaves and comes back again. And the kids don't, they miss their classes and I have to call the office. So my children were given their teachers' numbers. So when the internet started to stop working, they are able to send them a message to explain to them that their signal isn't working anymore, that the internet no longer works, so that the teacher is aware and usually responds to them. And all the children who live here receive the package containing the homework that they should be doing throughout the week. And I have tried calling, from my sister giving me the phone numbers to Xfinity and Comcast. And they told me that from the address that I gave them, that no, there isn't any signal here, it's not even in their map. So what am I supposed to do? And yes, thankfully the school was able to provide us with some internet. And thankfully it somewhat works. Because we have been struggling with the kids and the internet. And well, I put the hotspot that they provided where it gets a little bit of signal and it works. A little, but it works.
Like many families that live in rural areas, Angelica Luna struggles to keep her children in class, with their internet signal often failing and having to adapt to learning from what Angelica can teach them. And this lack of internet access has been creating a gap between what and how someone can learn depending on whether or not they have internet connection. And a problem that will only get worse as more and more tasks rely on having that internet connection that she, like many others, lack. But why is it so hard to get internet installed in so many parts of rural America? Well, to find out, we sat down to talk to Eduardo, whose company New Era Satellite works for various internet companies selling and installing their services.
Let me share you a little details about how the home broadband works. So when they see that there's less property out there, they tend not to invest anything because they know they're not going to make any money out of it back. If you have 100 homes that are in a high demand and you're willing to invest to give them all fiber optic and you know they're going to see money in the next 5 years, I'm pretty sure you're going to hop on that. Now, if you see like 10 homes in a rural area and you have to invest so many thousands, are you going to invest in that? Most likely, most people won't invest in it because there's no money coming back within 5 years. That one customer might not even be the customer anymore. He's most likely going to be like, you know what, I don't even need the home internet. I'll go old school. That's why I live in the rurals. And that's when the rural home internet works, the fixed wireless, in other words, right? The satellites. And you'll be lucky if you even have a local provider that's willing to put like a little post out there or a little antenna out there to make that reception work. Well, I wish in the future there's going to be pretty much internet everywhere in the rurals. Now, as in the present time, yeah, we just got to settle for what we got.
So it seems that for many internet service providers, there simply isn't enough demand and profit to justify attempting to expand their internet service to many remote areas, as the cost for installing internet in remote areas simply outnumbers the potential profits for these businesses who will not see any returns for years. And the few companies that have ventured out to make internet available simply have to charge more in order to see their return investments in a timely manner. However, while today many Americans struggle to receive adequate internet, the future does hold out a promise, with not one but two billionaires, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, creating their own space companies, SpaceX and Blue Origin, with the hope that they can launch new, fast, reliable, and most importantly affordable satellite internet companies that may, someday, provide internet for the whole world. But for now, we can only wait and see.
My name is Lila Jordan. I am 16 years old. I go to Fresno High, and the name of my documentary is Anxiety and Depression. I feel like it's really important for my story to get out there because at school, a lot of people think that I have a normal life a lot, and I really don't. And this is one of the things I want to get out so a lot of people will understand what I'm coming from. I hope people would just be more open about themselves instead of keeping everything in, because if you do, it's going to hurt yourself even more. If you say something, then you'll feel relieved and you'll get some help, like from therapists or counselors, or even sometimes people you really trust. My name is Lila Jordan, and the name of my documentary is Anxiety and Depression. Okay, I feel like everything that's been gone through my life, and sometimes people think that I'm a normal person, but in real life, I'm really not. I have been dealing with depression and anxiety for almost 5-6 years, and it really started when my parents got married and my brother moved in, and I thought everything was gonna be good when he moved down, and apparently my mind was wrong. Everything was wrong, and to be honest with everyone who was watching this, I didn't want to be here anymore. I was in this situation where I was just confused overall. In the midst of that, I have been faking being happy all the time, and I wasn't. I was not sure what else to do next. I've been struggling to find myself. I'm still doing it now because of everything was going on, but at the same time, because a lot of teenagers and young adults, we are really dealing with this. And sometimes it's hard for us to control it. And now, with the and everything, it's been really struggling for all of us. And my anxiety is when my older brother comes in Fresno. Sometimes it's hard for me to have a conversation with them because all the bad things that he done to me and my family, and I'm still going through it.
Depression means to me is when somebody has been through a lot of stuff and they don't know how to control their emotions as good as people who don't have depression, and that's what depression means to me.
Okay, I think parents should talk to their children about depression and anxiety, because there is a lot of people who are killing themselves, especially teenagers, because but in our mind, we think it's hard to explain to our parents about what we are going through, and sometimes we think that they don't understand, even though sometimes they do. And every day it's hard for us to say something that's on our mind because we think of a different reaction of what we're giving to them. And for any of you guys out there who are really struggling with this, you should talk to someone or write in the journal, because that really helps me to get my feelings out. And if I like scared to talk to my parents of what's going on, I'll write my journal. But I stopped doing that because I have a counselor who is helping me to do some ways to help me with my anger issues, with my anxiety or my depression. Because when I'm out in the real world, I don't want to be sad and depressed every single day.
Dealing with Layla and her anxiety, it takes time. We sit down and talk it out, and needing her to sit down and open up and tell me from what's going on, why she's feeling that way. And then I give her examples and let her know that it's okay because everybody feels the anxiety and the depression of COVID, being inside, not being able to see your friends or family members and things like that, or just go somewhere without worrying about having to have a mask and what's everything that's going on in the world, because it affects everybody. The anxiety, the anxiety came with COVID, with the school shut down, the kids are at home, and like, oh my goodness, and not knowing. That's the anxiety of not knowing, and people are passing away. As a child, the anxiety I think I had was during my parents' divorce, and the idea that my dad's job, he would tell us horror stories, and so that would give me anxiety of something happening to him. Other than that, and then the anxiety of my mom getting sick. That was more out of everything in my childhood, because I was only 16 when she told us, and she died when I was 19. So the anxiety really didn't hit until she started treatment and losing her hair, because she was always going to work, going to school, and taking care of us. So tell them to stop and tell them that they need to go to therapy if they have something going wrong with them, so they have somebody to talk to outside of their household, because so they can talk to someone that could like listen to them if they're not telling anybody in their household what's going on. So then they could tell somebody when they go to therapy what's going on.
Hi, my name is Arturo Ledesma. I'm 18. I'm a senior in Kerman High School, and my documentary film is called Field Workers. What inspired me to make the film was I live like near the fields, so I always saw just like what was happening, or like how like they were taking advantage of them. So at a young age, like, I was born in a ranch. I've always been in a ranch. I currently still live in a ranch, and I just saw all that. I saw my father every day. He comes back. He has back problems. He has to like take off his like boots, but he can barely do it because he's just very tired. His calluses all over his arms, and I just saw that. Even my brother at a young age, at the age of 7, he had to go to work. My mother, instead of having to take care of us, she had to go to the fields to work. So I was just basically raised by my brother, and I knew I needed to talk about that problem, because that's the one problem I feel like I needed to talk about, because I saw it my whole life. Something I hope people take away from my film is just like respect towards field workers, what we do for you guys, the food we put on the table for y'all. And just like every time you eat an apple or get an avocado, you realize how much people had to work to get that fruit or vegetable towards your local grocery store. My name is Angelica Luna, and this is my film, Field Workers.
Me dices que te hablaron mal de mí, que en lugar de llorar, que no soy para ti.
This is my uncle Luis Ledesma. I got to interview him and follow him around his work. It was pretty fun. We started off the day by going to the barn, feeding the horses, and I'm just lying to you, it was miserable. The hot California sun was in our face the whole time. Dirt was everywhere, and we were working in manure waste. To make it worse, I wasn't paying attention and got splashed in the process. Oh! Oh, mi mujer. I'm not really allowed to complain since he's been doing it since he was 14 years old, and from his experience he's seen countless different people come and go because they weren't able to handle the fields.
Por muchos no han podido, que se les hace duro.
Now you're probably thinking to yourself, why? If this job is so difficult, why continue to do it?
No tengo estudio, pues tengo que trabajar en el field para sacar adelante a mis hijas. Porque hay mucha gente que han tenido sus estudios y sus padres les han podido dar estudio a sus hijos y ya ellos llegan a ser otra persona, no lo mismo que su papá, que miran el esfuerzo de sus padres y ellos luchan para tener un estudio y ya ser diferente. Cuando ya estén grandes, ellos ya están preparados, estudiados para hacer más cosas arriba.
Okay, so we know the life of a field worker is difficult, but what about someone who started in the fields but was capable of leaving that life behind? What's their story?
My name is Arturo Ledesma, and I stopped working in the fields in 2019. From a young age, I started working in the fields. I began probably around 2006 when we moved here to California. I would go with my parents to work and help them with any tasks that I could. I also grew up on a farm. Anything that needed to get done around the farm that I could do, I would go and get some money for that. When I turned 11, I started going more often. One summer, I got the opportunity to work full-time, and then from then I worked full-time till 2019 when I stopped. We moved from Mexico to California in 2005. I remember Mexico. At times I feel like the US doesn't appreciate me or like my people.
¿De dónde son ustedes? ¿Y tú?
Guatemala.
No llores. Vas a llegar con... Mira, ella te va a explicar y te va a ayudar. ¿Cierto, Consuelo?
¿Qué va a pasar con su consulado hoy? Papá. Papá. Con mi tía por lo menos para que después llegue mi mami. ¿Me puedes abrir la puerta? ¿Alguien cerró la puerta esa? Que me venga a traer mi tía para llevar.
I just feel like field workers should get more respect, and we should take this narrative away that we're stealing people's jobs or that we're lazy, because I invite anybody who has that opinion, come work one day under the sun, couple hours, and see how you feel. Most likely you won't make it to the day. Learn, maybe, when you go pick up that fruit in the grocery store, think of how many hands it has took to get that fruit there. It probably has gone through somebody picking it, to somebody processing it and packaging it, to somebody delivering it. So it's definitely a lot of hard work that goes into putting food on people's tables.
Hello everyone, my name is Singh. I'm 17 years old and I'm from Fresno, California. I attend Sunnyside High School and this is my documentary called Meri Mitti. What inspired me to make this film was basically the lack of recognition and the lack of appreciation of diversity that's occurring within our world. We live in a world where we have different types of people from different areas of the world. And these types of people, the diverse people within our world, are having their own issues too. But not many issues are being verbalized or heard, especially in nations so powerful like ours. In this documentary, I focused on the farmer protests of India. And the reason I focused on this protest was mainly because this protest affected me as a whole. I am a Sikh Punjabi individual who comes from a family of farmers from India. This issue, this protest that is occurring within India, is something that hits home with me. It is something that I am fighting for, something that I truly care for. And I believe it is something that needs to be heard. This protest has become one of the biggest protests to ever occur within human history, within mankind's history. But again, in places all across the world where all types of media, where all types of news is being shared, no information was being shared about this documentary. There was no recognition occurring. I wanted to create this documentary so my people can have a voice, so the people of India can have their voices be heard, have their rights be given, and have their issues be solved. I can let the world know that this is Meri Mitti, this is our land. What I hope that people take away the most from my documentary is just more knowledge about the types of people that live in the world, the types of issues that are occurring within our world, and again, at the end of the day, an appreciation for the diversity that we have. I believe knowledge is power, and the more we know, the more we can solve. What we do now will affect our future. If we can't figure our issues out now, if we can't resolve the conflicts, if we can't put an end to the protests that are occurring, I can tell you that stability will not be in our future. My name is Singh. This is my film, Meri Mitti. Sat Sri Akal and Waheguru.
Pau poe pavit pani sat santokh baled hal halemi hali chit cheta vatar vakat sanjog now beej bakshish bol dunya sagal darog nanak nadari karam hoye jave sagal vijog.
September 17th, 2020. A day of division within the country of India. A day of separation between the holy farmers of the nation and the overruling government. On September 17th, 2020, 3 agricultural laws were passed by the government of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. 3 laws that would forever change the lives of Kisans. 1. The Farmers' Produce Trade and Commerce Act, an act that is said to enable farmers to sell their goods outside of the Agricultural Produce Market Committee and to license whole traders at mutually agreed prices. In reality, this law will slowly lead to the abolishment of the minimum support price in markets powered by the Agricultural Produce Market Committee, forcing farmers to sell their produce to private companies. 2. The Farmers' Agreement of Price Assurance and Farm Services Act, an act that will enable farmers to participate in contract farming and market their produce as freely as they wish. What's wrong with this? Well, this law will make farmers more prone to being targets of private attacks and force them to be leached by private companies. 3. The Essential Commodities Act, an act that will allow items like pulses, oils, onions, and food grains to be free for trade, which will negatively affect farmers by causing there to be price differences within the country. Agriculture serves to be the country's main life force, helping to support the 1.3 billion lives that exist within it. But now with these possible laws, those lives are at risk. One side now fights to preserve their livelihoods and those of their children's, while the other side fights to make a greater, more powerful nation. Now, those fights have been taken to the streets of India as protests. Thousands to millions of farmers, supporters, and advocates have taken to the streets of New Delhi, Los Angeles, London, San Francisco, and even New York to voice their frustrations with the Indian government and show their support for the farmers across the fertile lands. this isn't enough. It's almost been 6 months, roughly 24 weeks, 180 days, 4,320 hours, 259,000 minutes, and 15,552,000 seconds. And all this time, the farmers of India have been fighting for their rights and have received no solution. The conflict remains within the country. Other powers of the world might have a slight perception about the issues occurring, but do not have the capabilities to take action. The media provides falsified information, Twitter accounts have been suspended, hashtags related to the protest have been taken down, and foreign voices have been silenced. The farmers of India continue to fight this long-lasting battle, but for how long can they keep their spirits high? The farmers will fight to save their lands and families, but who will fight to save the farmers of India? The voices of those in distress can be heard all across the world, and the voices of farmers in India can now be heard amongst our youth. Some of those youth are Charan Kamal Padda and Amarpreet Kaur, two Punjabi students from universities within California.
My name is Charan Kamal Padda. I'm of age 21, and my position is that I'm a student at the University of California at Davis. And about the farmers protest, I'm involved with the farmers protest because I myself am Jat, I'm of the Jat caste, which means farming. It's from I come from a farming background. My grandparents and ancestors were all farmers, and to this day, my family still owns farmland in our ancestral village in Punjab, India.
My name is Amarpreet. I'm 21 years old. I'm currently a student at UC Berkeley. I'm studying social welfare and public policy. So given my knowledge in policy, I have a bit of a deeper understanding of the farmers' protest, as well as my involvement in advocacy and social justice.
Speaking to these educated individuals, discussions regarding the issues and conflicts that plague the farmers of India came to rise, all starting with the individuals behind the agricultural laws and the effects they propose to see.
Two businesses that I know of for sure are the Adani Group and Reliance Industries. And these are the two largest corporations with headquarters in India. They're by far the richest in terms of the amount of wealth that they have. And their CEOs, Mukesh Ambani and Gautam Adani, are the two richest men in the country. And so if agriculture is privatized, it is corporations like these that are going to benefit the most.
I think it is all driven by money, clearly. If money wasn't an issue, none of this would be happening. And because it's all driven by money, it's driven by, more broadly, capitalism. These corporations are trying to get as much as they can from the little guy being the farmers. And the farmers have a little protection, we can see that that the farmers are not necessarily in the most ideal state pre these laws, right? There has been a drastic increase in the number of farmers suicides, right? And this was before these laws have even been passed. So imagine what's going to happen after these laws are passed.
From what Charan Kamal and Amarpreet said themselves, a struggle for power exists. Common farmers in India with just enough money in their pockets to feed their families are going against multi-billion-dollar companies and individuals. The flaw in India's government exists right here. Modi's government chooses to value materialistic rupees over the soul of his citizens. The greedy government of India wishes to appease those with significant wealth and power rather than the farmers of the country's fertile lands. This is where Modi made a mistake, for the farmers of India are a lot more to the country than just its slaves. Both Charan Kamal and Amarpreet discuss the importance of Kisans in India.
India also has the world's second largest population, which is a population that's constantly growing. It's predicted that by 2050, India is going to be the most populous country in the world. And so in order to feed such a large population, the country really needs to grow food. And that can best be done by the farmers of the country. And for other parts of the world, farmers are very important just all over the world in general because people need food to live. So who's gonna grow the food? It's farmers who are gonna do that. So
food is something that every human needs, comes from farmers. So therefore, farmers are ingrained in our everyday lives. And some of us see it, some of us don't. And because farmers are necessary for our everyday lives, they are literally necessary for life.
Life. That's exactly what the farmers of India have given up when it comes to the issues of these agricultural laws. The recognition they don't receive and the power that is taken from them leads them to risk their lives. Recent studies have shown that up to 7.9% of suicides within the country have originated from the farming sector. In the last year alone, India has lost up to 6,000 farmers and 4,500 agricultural laborers to suicide. It's said that every day, 28 people dependent on farming die by suicide in India. These laws that Modi's government proposes aren't bringing life to the tricolor nation. They're bringing death upon its people. While all hope may be lost for India, why should others within the world care for the farmer protests? Why should others within the world speak out against the injustices that are occurring? My friends, we're all a family. No matter the color of your skin, the God you believe in, the type of food you eat, where you're from, or where you now live, we are all human. We belong to one race, and that is the human race. We are all connected. What affects some people in one part of the world can have a tremendous effect on others across the world. Our actions define us. Charan Kamal is well aware of this belief and provided some input of why others should support the farmers' protests.
I believe that one of the biggest reasons that I believe everyone should support these protests is everyone should support the right to freedom of speech and the right to peacefully protest. So when the protests first began, there were many attempts made to prevent farmers from reaching the capital city. So like roads were dug up and barricades were set up in the middle of highways. And farmers were beat with batons by police officers, and they were blasted with dirty and cold water from sewers coming out of water cannons. And, India calls itself the world's largest democracy. And in my opinion, it does have the full potential of becoming a very great democracy. But if free speech is being suppressed in India like this, that is a matter of concern, because the world's largest democracy itself is not upholding the values of democracy in the way that it should. And this is a threat to all democracy worldwide.
If we don't act now, the lives of farmers within India will be put at further risks. And sooner or later, the world itself will be at risk. If we lose our farmers, no matter where they are or where they come from, we will lose the most hardworking, honest, and noble people this world has yet to see. If we lose our farmers, we will lose our lives. The government of India refuses to support its people. So now it's up to the external powers or countries of the world to step in and provide, if nothing more, than their support. It's up to people like us to speak for those who are being silenced. We must take the power, rights, freedom, and liberties that we've been given and spread them across the world to those without, especially in India as of right now. Take to social media. Spread the news about the farmer protests of India and the negative effects the proposed agricultural laws are having upon the livelihood of farmers. Attend local rallies or protests that might be occurring within your city or state. Reach out to local Punjabi or advocating organizations around you and find out how you can make a difference. If we let this issue die out, we will be letting millions of innocent lives die out as well. It's now up to us to bring freedom to the oppressed farmers of India. It's up to us now to make the fertile lands of India blossom green again and have the 5 rivers flow with water and not the tears of crying families. It's up to us to make a change. Kisan Zindabad. Waheguru.
Hello, and thanks everyone for sticking around for the Q&A. And I don't want to spend too much time taking over the platform here. I want to go ahead and give it over to our students and our student filmmakers. So Marisela is another CMAC staff member who's been collecting questions and comments. Marisela, do you have any comments for our filmmakers or questions?
Hey, I definitely have questions. And give me just 1 second. I definitely have questions, and I just want to let you guys know you guys have been receiving nothing but love on the YouTube channel. You've been getting just a lot of applause. A lot of people have been just really appreciating your stories. They're very happy to see what you're passionate about and seeing it live. So it was, congratulations, you guys, you're doing a great job. I do have some questions for you. So if whoever feels empowered to do so, please unmute yourself and answer. One of my first questions was, what part of the whole process have you enjoyed the most? Did you have a favorite part, like in pre-production, planning it all, or filming or editing? What was your favorite part?
I could definitely speak to that. For me personally, I'd have to say my favorite part would have to be post-production, just putting all the story together, mainly because that is where you get to see your dreams, your envision of the entire thing come to life itself. Pre-production and all that stuff, you have a general idea, but post-production, you get to see all the hard work you put in come into one being of life and just see how it flourishes. So my favorite would have to be that part, just the end of seeing everything come together.
Sweet, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to answer?
Yeah, so similar to Sean, in my case, it was also like while creating it, in my case, I couldn't go and film a lot of the shots, so I had to like think awfully creatively, like, okay, what kind of words can I use to get like the type of B-roll that I need? Because obviously, in my mind, I have, I had something in mind. I couldn't go and film it, obviously. So it was just typing away and seeing what keywords would work and trying to find that right like shot that would work perfectly fine for what I'm telling and saying. So it was challenging. Sometimes shots would, like, some images I would be able to find, like trying to find like historical images of the 2000s. For example, when doing the slideshow was really hard because apparently nobody really took photos of the 2000s because it's not considered historical. It's like, they're just there around, but no one really collects them. If I was to say, 1980s or even, 1800s, a whole library would pop up of, archived and detailed images, but of the early 2000s, nothing yet. So that was also challenging, but fun at the same time.
Would anyone else like to answer? If not, I do have another question for y'all, and this is from a comment on YouTube. This is from Kyle. He wanted to know, what was it like coordinating the interviews during a global pandemic?
I'll answer this one, I guess. It's definitely more of a challenge. I have some filmmaking experience, but not really. I'm, focused more in pre-production and production as a producer normally. And so a lot of my experience has been pre-pandemic. And, it's like if someone's not answering your emails or phone calls, it's a lot easier to maybe go find them in person. If you're doing an interview about their career or something, going to their workplace and asking. And that wasn't an option with this, obviously. So, it's just sending emails, making phone calls, and just hoping that people get back to you. Luckily I found that people, you throw out the word student filmmaker and people are a lot more likely to be receptive and help you with that. But it was still really hard to just try and get people who would actually check their emails for once.
Very nice. Thank you, Jackie, for sharing. Is there anyone else that would like to answer that question?
Yeah, I wanted to give input. For my documentary especially, it was necessarily hard because it's hard focusing on an issue that's occurring halfway across the country and finding sources that are nearby within you, like within your area, the distance and like the authenticity of whatever is occurring isn't necessarily the same. Had there not been a global pandemic, I 75% would be sure I'd be in that country right now for at least a week and like getting in-person action as much as I could. Mainly because one, it's my home, it's where my family's come from, and two, I believe it's necessary giving a first-person perspective of what's really occurring, just, a bird's eye view. But it was necessarily hard for me to get the interviews, but thankfully I was able to find community members within my region that were doing the same advocacy that I was doing. And so they too had a lot to say about their feelings and whatever was going on. So it was a little bit of a bittersweet, but at the end of the day, it came through and everything ended up really great.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
so
Jose.
it was a bit challenging in my case, just because I did have a lot more interviews planned out, and even like that would go into like, for example, interview someone who installs them, homeowners, and people who are have access to high speed and no internet at all, which it was just tough because obviously COVID stopped a lot of that. And in my case, it was like having to see who I'm like able to access relatively quickly. And for example, one of the hardest ones was people who didn't have internet. Obviously, I can't send them an email and like, hey, do you have internet? And I'm pretty sure I was gonna get a no reply. So having to like go way out there and like ask people, which is obviously a bit dangerous with COVID and everything, and people would be like a bit like oh whoa, hey, you're not supposed to be here. And just having I even went all the way to like Oakhurst to try and get an interview, but that also didn't even work. But it's definitely challenging. COVID does put a lot of restrictions on a lot of people and what they're comfortable with. Which again, just like things that we used to do, now people are a little bit more hesitant to do. Such as now letting, in my case, me, a stranger, go and interview them.
Thank you, Jose. Is there anyone else that would like to answer that question? I could definitely repeat it if you need me to repeat that one. If not, go ahead.
I feel like in my opinion, it was a little bit difficult because the people that I wanted to interview, they bailed on me. So like that was like my plan A, but my plan B, like using my family members in it, it was a good idea to do because they know what I was dealing with, especially in the household and everything. But overall, it worked out really well.
That's really great. Thank you so much for sharing, Leila. We have another comment coming in from Natalie. She wants to know, in what ways do you think that your participation in this documentary filmmaking program will help you in the future?
I would definitely say that whatever we as a cohort have done really represents student and youth voices to the prime. I believe every individual here is, to a certain extent, a motivator and someone who's now become an idol in someone's eyes and can now encourage people to have their voices be heard. For me, like, this experience really taught me about like advocacy and the importance of having stories be told, and how just a simple story can have such a impactful effect. And so I feel like this entire experience overall not only bettered me as a person, but it allowed me to inspire whoever it may be within the world to just have their voice be heard or just tell their story to whoever it may be.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to share?
I'm kind of curious to hear from Alicia or Eunice as well. Layla, I saw you unmuted. If you'd like to go next, please do.
I was about to say that I feel like this experience really helped me because this is the things I want to do when I'm older, because I was like stressing what I want to do and everything. And my school, it has a lot of video and that's like the main thing that they have over there. And I was like, I'll try this out. And second, when I had that class, I was like, oh, this is what I want to do when I'm older. And when I heard about CMAC and everything, I was like, I want to take the next big step. I feel after this, I want to do more and more and what I want to do, because after this, I want to do art and probably be like a producer or an editor while I'm in the college, because that's my main goal I want to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Alicia, what are your thoughts?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Of course. All right, so Natalie says, in what ways do you think that your participation in this documentary filmmaking program will help you in the future?
Well, I think that it definitely gave me more like experience in making film things, and also I had never like fully made my own video like this before. Like I've made other videos, but I was never the producer and the person taking the interviews and the editor, and I've never done all the things. So I think it gave me a lot of really good experience, and I'll be able to do a lot better the next time I decide to make some sort of film or documentary.
That's what I love to hear. You're going to make another one. You guys are going to come back into CMAC and get some gear and use the studio. I'm excited for you. Eunice, we haven't had a chance to hear from you. What do you think?
I feel like that my participation in the documentary filmmaking program really helped me to have a voice and to share the subjects that I'm really curious and passionate about. Moreover, me having a platform to share my voice enables me to amplify the voices of other underserved communities as well. So I think that this program was really helpful in making sure that people have stories to tell and voices to share their stories as well.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you everyone for sharing. I have more questions rolling in, so feel free to come up like popcorn and answer them. So we have another question from Mo. He's one of our board members, and he wants to know if there's anything CMAC or Fresno, the community of Fresno, could have done different to help you or can improve upon resources in the future to help talented young people like you.
Personally, I think the program was great. Even though, we're over Zoom and we can't meet in person and do anything like that, I think everyone did really well. I honestly couldn't come up with any improvements just because even with all the boundaries and all the barriers that you face with everyone being in different places and everyone not actually getting to meet in person, still was great. I learned a lot. So I mean, hopefully, everything going well, that the next year's program could meet in person, and I think that would just really improve things a lot for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. It like besides everything that's been going on, like CMAC has definitely like stepped up to like help us out in any way that we can. Because obviously this was like totally new for everyone here. Like nobody expected this, but CMAC did take up a challenge and help us out in through this pandemic. To just remotely how to use cameras and have sessions to for us to ask questions if we had any. And everything done remotely, yet we still, and every step of the way, if we struggled or had any question or anything like that, they would help us out. So pretty well.
Very nice, very nice. Anyone else would like to answer that? If not, I'll take us to our next question. Again, this question is, there's a follow-up from Natalie,
And she's asking, what advice would you give other students like you who are interested in creating a documentary of their own?
I would probably like to start that one off by saying this is not how a documentary is normally made. It isn't done remotely. It isn't done alone. Usually you do have a team. You see us all like, having everything here, but we were probably like pretty stressed out and working really hard to get it done. But it's like under normal circumstances, it's very fun. I mean, like you get to go and work with a team. Obviously, in this case, it wasn't, but you get to go and work with a team, have be part of the whole experience, and just slowly see your creation build. And even if you do turn out to work on your own, like just seeing how slowly while editing your story starts to make sense. You start seeing the cuts, start to flow together. Your story, everything just starts building until you have your at the end. You're like, wow, this is what I wanted. This is my video. I created this, or we created this. It's just a fun experience that you just get to see your creation come to life.
Very nice. Is there anyone else that would like to share?
I just wanted to add on. If anything, I think some advice that I give to other students or anybody in general is not to be afraid to take the first step. I feel like when you talk about documentary making, everybody thinks of like high production studios and just like high production, just camera quality, and that many people don't have access to. But realistically, like what I've learned through this process, that whatever you make is a documentary, whether it be of high quality, low quality, whatever you make is your work. And even like the smallest amount of work can have the biggest effort. So just go for it. Just take the first step, face the fears, and whatever you produce, whatever you're happy with, others will be happy with as well.
Very nice. Thank you for that one. Would anyone else like to share?
I would also to add on that throughout the experience and for the future, it's like time and really patience about it, because if you really rush through it, and even though you have your idea and you rush through it, they'll be all messed up and you have the ideas that you had or you want to put, it doesn't work out the way that you want. And if you really took your time and process step by step, or even put it in a calendar what you want to do, and um, know what the next step is going to be, then you'll be on the right track of what to do.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate your thoughts. Anyone else would like to share some advice they would give to someone?
I actually want to do a follow-up question to that for Alicia and Eunice. It's not easy to take multiple interviews and string them together. And a lot of the filmmakers in the cohort did interview multiple people. Eunice and Alicia did lengthy interviews with different folks and strung those together. And that's not an easy thing to do when you're first walking into documentaries. And so Alicia, could you talk about how you were able to make that work? And then what kind of advice would you give someone wanting to do the same thing, like how to tackle that?
Well, I asked like 20 questions for each. I asked 20 questions to each of them, and they were all the same questions. So I had a ton of footage to work through. But I think having more questions made it easier for me to figure out like these answers work well with each other, and I can easily string this together and these sound good. And I had a lot more stuff to work with. It took longer for me to look through it and edit it, but I think it was easier having more to work with than to having less.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, thank you. Eunice, what about you? Talk about your process and what advice would you give if someone wanted to do the same thing?
So I asked like 12 questions per interviewee. in my documentary, and it came out to like 20 minutes. And it was actually hard. I had a hard time shortening the airtime of each interviewee. So what I tried to do is I introduced the topic of my documentary, moved on to causes and then the impacts of those education barriers. And then I ended it with potential solutions to create a story that was cohesive enough.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you for sharing.
Well, I have one more question from the chat. And Kyle Lowe says that if you could start working on another production or another documentary tomorrow, what topic would you dive into and why? The why is my part.
I could answer this one. I've thought about this so much during this process, and it sounds a little bit cliche and like weird, but if I could, I would make a documentary about how to make documentaries. And so I thought about this process throughout the entire CMAC course, but if I could go back in time and just like document the entire cohort process, I felt like that'd be a really interesting part because I was able to learn so much from this cohort, but being able to make a documentary about what I learned and how I used the learnings to make a final product, I felt like that would be a good foundation for others or whoever wants to start creating documentaries to just build a guide upon. So yeah, I would definitely make a documentary about how to make proper documentaries.
Sort of like a how to what do and don't do. Don't follow the rabbit too far down the rabbit hole. Very cool. Anyone else have a documentary they're ready to take a tackle on tomorrow, maybe, possibly?
So this was actually from one of the assignments that we got in the cohort from doing an audio assignment. I interviewed my brother. Now my brother likes to resell Jordans and like high-end shoes. He buys and sells like this, and he makes me take them all over like San Joaquin Valley because he's like, that shoe's like $1 off, and he'll make me drive all the way over there, and I'm like, that's $1 off, that's $10 in gas. But anyway, from doing that, it made me realize that there's a whole like community of like, they're called sneakerheads in Fresno in the Central Valley, surprisingly a lot more than you might attribute. And they even have like their own like language. I found it funny. Like we went through like when I was doing the audio portion, I was like asking him like what's some special like language, because I know he talks and I get him talking like to other resellers in the groups that they have, and he's like talking all in like all these like weird like terms, and I'm like, what are you saying? And he's like, oh, I just want to buy some shoes. But he's like, and he just like, for example, for the toe, means that for yourself. VNDS, very near dead stock, which meant that they pretty much knew. Dead stock meant that they are new. And just all these like other different terms that they would use. Bricks, for example, meant that it was a shoe that, you know, nobody wanted. You would buy it and it would just stay there. But it was just one of those things that I was like, and that was originally going to be one of the ideas that I was going to do my actual documentary on, until I stumbled upon the issue of internet access. But like just going out and interviewing and seeing, you know, the whole community that Fresno and California and the Central Valley has of these resellers, the groups that are made, the connections, because it's a wide, like a whole network that they have for finding shoes and selling and just serving the community.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Cool. Jackie, what about you? You've got another project you think you're going to tackle?
I mean, I think the issue is I've always got too many ideas, but they're always like, you know, you've got little fragmented ideas of things that you could possibly expand on, but there's too many little fragments everywhere. Like I'm a senior this year, and in my film academy, we created a senior thesis. And so my senior thesis was about how water in the Central Valley affects residents, specifically like low income residents. I'd love to, you know, expand on that project more. I've always been interested, and, you know, this is such a heavy agricultural area in Tulare County. like following that and seeing if any like agricultural products or like chemicals in any of our like fertilizers or anything maybe had a connection to childhood cancer rates. So there's just all these ideas that I'd love to eventually expand on and maybe do a documentary on, but there's too many ideas that I wouldn't be able to pick one.
Write them all down in the slips of paper, throw it in a hat, shake it up, pull one out, and that's how you'll get them. Layla, do you have another topic you'd like to do?
I'm thinking like a topic like about truck drivers because my dad is personally a truck driver. He's been doing it for, well, next month is going to be 10 years since he's been a truck driver. So I feel like I could do a topic about that because a lot of people think like, oh, it's so easy. They have to take this to a certain area and back. It's like, no, it's way harder than it is because you have to go to traffic, and especially my dad, he gets pulled over by the police like several times and gets tickets several times, and it's like harder that than it is because he has to like um provide for um the family and everything, and it's been like really tough, especially during this pandemic because we thought that he was going to lose his job during quarantine, but thankfully he hasn't. And it's like really hard for the truck drivers to provide what they need because it's been really super tough. And at the same time, um, it's like somewhat harder, but it's really not because um, they do so much in like certain amount of days, and some people don't even see that at all.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. I hope you get a chance to do that one for sure. Alicia, what about you? What's your next topic? I know you were talking about taking on another project when you came in to CMAC not that long ago.
Kind of like I don't have a very clear idea about it, but maybe something about like undiagnosed ADHD or ADHD in girls, something like that.
All right. Cool. Thank you for sharing.
I just want to say that I'm looking forward to seeing these, ideas and documentaries coming in the future. Hopefully coming to me soon. But very nice, you guys. I love your answers. You guys have a lot to say. There is, if we're good on time, Lisa, there is just like 2 more questions we would like to ask, or I would like to ask over here.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, okay, cool. All right, you guys. I took notes. So, a lot of the people who who commented on YouTube actually took most of my questions. So I'm glad. And then, but I also wanted to ask, like, you guys, the stories you did, oh my gosh, like, very powerful. I got goosebumps. And some of them really hit home close to home. And just also seeing your guys' interviews, it was just amazing. I wanted to ask you, how were you feeling throughout this process? Because it's something that you're making a documentary on, something that really matters to you. And so, how were you emotionally going through this this entire process?
I would say that for me, it was super emotional on my part, especially interviewing my mom, especially because I didn't know the things that she was going through. But I know some of the things like her parents went to divorce when she was 9 years old. Like I never gone through that, but I know some people who had gone through it is like really, really struggling, especially at a young age. And when when her mom passed away, when she like just graduated from high school and everything, that was really, I was trying not to cry behind the camera because I had never met my grandmother before at all, because she died in 91, which was like, it's especially like super hard talking about it. I'm like trying not to get emotional and everything, but it's just super, super difficult. And I know my mom's like still going through it, and she's still going through with my grandpa and everything, which is really hard. And I feel like for me personally, because I'm like the first person in my family who's going through anxiety and depression for a long time and everything, and um it's like really hard to contribute. It was like super hard to say what I need to say and everything, because I was like trying to let everything out what I need to say, and it was like super difficult. And um and like some stuff I was like saying to myself, don't cry, don't cry, because if I cry, it'll be all over the place. And I'm just really, really glad I have myself to voice myself what I need to say, because I know there's like some people out there who are like me and are trying to figure out what they need to do and what to say, because I know it's really difficult what they're trying to do right now.
Thank you for sharing. I know that these stories are very close to your heart, especially the one you shared too. So thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Is there anyone else that would like to answer the question? All right, well, here is my last one. I just want to say, just kind of like, how have your views changed since you first started the video, or your journey here to the end? So like, you came into this project, with a good, like, just the thought of a topic that you wanted to do. But now, after all the research, all the filming, all the personal stories, all those emotions and thoughts and everything you went through, how'd you come out at the end, and what has changed for you?
I would say for me, the entire process led to me at the end wanting to know what I could do more. I obviously took this documentary as a step of giving back and like allowing recognition to be shined upon, like whatever I wanted to discuss. But after that, I also want to know like what I could do more to emphasize my message or the overall topic I'm trying to contribute to. So basically, it was just like the desire of wanting to give back and just truly wanting to understand all types of views and stories that are waiting to be heard. So I would say that's what I took away.
In my case, I like at the beginning of the documentary, obviously I wanted to cover both sides. But even then, in my case, I was like always like, oh, why don't they just put internet over there? In remote areas. And then it wasn't until I finally got to sit down and interview someone who does work with the internet providers, and they were like, in the end, it is a business for them. So it did clarify a couple things of like, hey, why is it? Obviously, there's still some stuff that I'm still like, that's a little questionable. But it did clear up a bit. Just on topics of like the logistics of how to get internet to an area, the challenges that sometimes they face. So, for example, if you're really, really up in the mountains, your bill is going to be up, like most of the time, awfully high, and it's just having to hire a whole bunch of workers to go and install a line for that area. It would be like a huge cost that may not come back. So it did clear up a bit of things, changing my perspective of just simply like, oh, why don't we install internet to okay, I kind of see why this area doesn't have internet. Still does, in my case, still doesn't make it right. Because we are progressing. I am hopeful though, the future, as I mentioned, the video of the Starlink, which by the way, like last night, I actually got to see them. The satellites were passing by, and you could see them all in a little row. But yeah, it did change my perspective a little bit from when I started.
Very cool. Very cool. Dom, you've been awfully quiet. Do you have any thoughts you'd like to share with the group?
Yes. So sorry, I gotta adjust my headset because I'm literally monitoring the stream in real time. So I'm gonna hear myself double if I don't do this. But yeah, seeing you all do your 14-week journey in the program, let me just take off these headphones, look ridiculous that way. Seeing you all do your documentary over the course of 14 weeks has been such an amazing experience to see you guys come so far, and you guys have learned so much in such a short amount of time, and you guys did a project that even that should have taken a lot more time, even in the big industry. People will take several months to a couple years to see a story come to life and just see it mold and just change along the way, and you guys did that in just a matter of a few months. Like, that's really impressive. Furthermore, you guys did it in the middle of a pandemic where there are so many barriers that were put up. You guys all had similar experiences in terms of what those barriers were. Just trying to schedule interviews. A lot of them were done via Zoom, or just more unique experiences or unique challenges to every one of your videos. But overall, you all overcame those challenges in your own ways, and you guys should all pat yourselves on the back. A round of applause to all of you. And then even then, like, I know some of you have came into this program with little to no video production experience. You came out of this shining. All the videos were really well put together, despite all the challenges, despite all your different backgrounds in video production. You guys all did a very good job. So everything you guys have learned, take it to the next level. If you guys want to go forward with video production, you guys already have your first step into a larger world kind of thing. And not even that, the skills you guys learned, leadership, producing, time management, trying to juggle multiple tasks at once, all that stuff. You can take that knowledge into the real world workforce and, just take that knowledge, that experience, and just apply that to anything you guys want to do in life. So again, round of applause to every single one of you. You guys did a fantastic job.
I could not have said it better myself, and I second everything that Dom has just said. I'm really proud of the work that you guys did, honestly. I am excited to share it with other people, tell people about it, and get them to watch it. And you should also be proud, because just to add on to the experience that you were in, 14 weeks to learn it and do it. You're basically building the road as you're trying to run on it. And that's not a thing that people do on a regular basis. And a lot of people will just get frustrated and might just abandon a project. It's really hard. It's very frustrating. But you did it, you persevered, you pushed through, and you have something worth showing that tells a powerful story and is likely impacting a lot of people who are going to watch it in the future. So again, really proud of the work that you guys did, and you should be proud of the work that you did as well. It was an honor to be able to take you through this journey and run this program with you in it. It certainly enriched my life, and I hope it enriched yours. This sort of brings us to the end. We have reached the end of the Q&A, and this will be the end of Youth Voices officially, which makes me a little sad because I'm not going to be in contact with you guys as much as we have been before. But CMAC is open, we're opening our doors. The studio is now open to members. You can come back and get more cameras, come back and get your laptops to edit on those documentaries you were talking about, put some podcasts together upstairs, put a talk show together in our studio. We're very excited to see what you guys do next. And keep in touch. We'd love to hear from you and love to see the projects that you're going to be working on in the future. And personally, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who came and watched the streaming and asked great questions for our cohort. And I'd also like to say thank you to our funders, the California Endowment and California Humanities. It would not be possible to do this without their support and their help to be able to put something like this together. So big shout out to them, big shout out to you, filmmakers. Thank you for sharing your stories with us, and thank you everybody at home for watching and being with us here today.